All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to everyone to this session on data use in partner countries, where we're going to hear today from governments on how they're making use of IATI data. So I'm Sarah McDuff. I'm an analyst with UNDP sitting on the IATI Secretariat. And before we jump into the presentations, I want to give just a quick but hopefully exciting update. As many of you are aware, earlier this year we launched a new interim tool that's called the Country Development Finance Data Tool that was designed specifically to meet the needs of partner country governments for easy to analyze data on both projections and spending, and available in an Excel format. So each of our presenters today will likely touch on how they've made use of this tool, but I just wanted to update participants in this session that since March, users from over 85 countries have downloaded data from this tool. And this week we launched a slightly updated version of the tool with spreadsheets that now contain some additional data, and the interface and data outputs are also now available in French. And I think that the consultant supporting this work, Mark Ruff, is on the call as well. So special thanks to Mark for his support in carrying out this work. But hopefully now we have a tool that will meet the needs of, begin to meet the needs of Francophone users. And at the end of the month, we'll also be launching the same, the outputs in the interface in Portuguese and Spanish. So I'll include the links to these to the tool in the chat. But take a look and do let us know if you're interested in learning more or receiving a training on how to access and use this information. But now I will jump right into our presentations for today. And I would like to welcome and thank all three of our presenters for being willing to share how they've been making use of IATI data. We will have three presentations today. First, we will have a presentation from Motai. He's with the Aid Coordination Office at the Ministry of Development Planning with the government of Lesotho. We will then have a presentation from Lema, who is a statistician officer with the Ministry of Finance and Budget with the government of Chad. And then finally, we will have a presentation from Rufin, who is with the Aid Coordination Unit of the Prime Minister's Office of the government of Madagascar. So for housekeeping, just a reminder that there is interpretation available. So that please navigate to the bottom of your screen to be able to find the interpretation button to listen to the presentations in English, French, or Spanish. And at the end of each presentation, we will have a couple of minutes, hopefully, for questions. Please put your questions in the chat, and we will try to get to those questions. But now let me hand it over to Motai to take us through the first presentation.
Thank you very much, colleagues and the Madam Moderator. Let me now try to share my screen and confirm if you can see my screen. Can you now see my screen?
I believe it's coming through. Yep, we can now see it.
Or is there?
Yes. I think if you just start the presentation, we should be good.
Yes.
Perfect.
Can you now see it?
Yes, looks great.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from the other side of the world. Like the Madam Moderator has just highlighted, I'm just going to be taking you through the analysis of external financial flows into Lesotho and the use of the IATI data. My presentation will be outlined as follows. I'm going to be touching on the background, the objectives, why we decided to use IATI data, and how did we undertake the analysis. And the fourth objective would be what are the key analyses done with the IATI data analysis, and how is the analysis going to be used, or how the analysis was used. So first of all, I will start with the background, mentioning that the government of Lesotho embarked on producing and publishing the Development Cooperation Report every year since 2013, using the public database called the Public Sector Investment Database. This report that we usually produce serves as a publication of official development assistance into Lesotho. As you are all aware that there are the two declarations of which the countries and the development partners had to be the signatories to. The two declarations that I was referring to is, the first one is the Accra Declaration and the Paris Declarations. So for the countries and the partners to adhere to those two declarations, they make sure that they commit themselves to 5 principles of aid effectiveness, whereby they make sure that there is ownership, there is alignment, transparency, results, and mutual accountability. So the report that I've just talked about, being the Development Cooperation Report, outlines the sources and volumes of external development available to Lesotho, its composition, destination, as well as the trends. So when we are referring to the compositions, we are basically going to be looking at what kind of the development partners. Is it the multilateral, bilateral, or the assistance that we are getting? Is it from the international, or we should be what we are doing in developing our development cooperation report? So basically, where the aims that were intended in producing the report. The first objectives were to provide a systematic review of external financial flows into Lesotho. The second objective is to inform policy dialogue and mobilization and utilization of development resources based on the lessons learned from the past performance. Also, the report serves as a key instrument for informing between the government and the development partners. Also to inform the allocation strategies for the implementation development. In this report that we have just produced, we make sure that assistance that we are getting from the development partners rightly linked to the needs of the country. So whereby in this case, we're going to be linking those to our National Development Strategy Plan, which is NSDP2. Now we are going to be looking at why the databases that we were past year. So the use of IATI data from the CSDRMS, which is highly based off Lema, which is
I think we've lost your audio. Are you still able to hear us, Motai? Sorry, it seems that we've lost maybe his audio. Maybe we'll give it just a minute more, and then maybe.
Yes, we are trying to show him that he's lost, because we are aware that he's lost. Even us, we can't hear him while we are still listening. Dada Motai, can you hear us? Oh, he's still he's disconnected. He's trying to get back to us.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll give it one more minute and then we might just switch to the next presenter because we have only 45 minutes for this session. Let's see.
Yes, Sarah, how are you? Can you kindly put on the slides I'm going to be presenting from another device? Sorry for the...
Yeah, no worries. I think my colleague Sandra will put up the slides. Sandra, would that be possible?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, sure. I can put up the slides.
Okay, I think it was maybe the previous slide. If you wouldn't mind just going back
the
one.
previous slide, please.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, I was on the slide whereby we are just talking of why we decided to make the use of IATI data. So by the time I got lost, I was saying that for the past 4 years, the country or we have been looking or preparing our report using the data from the IATI. So one would want to understand why then did we decide to leave out our national database? What we have realized is that the IATI provides the wider range as opposed to the use of limited data available from the public sector investment database. And the use of the IATI data has enabled covering of its flows beyond public sector to include external development assistance to the private sector, foundations, as well as the NGOs. And we have also realized that by using the IATI data, the margin of error in reporting of aid flows to Lesotho have been minimized. So now we are going to look at how did we undertake the analysis. What we did is that previously we have been relying to the data store, and for most recent years, we then switched on to using the country development finance data tool to undertake the analysis. So now I'm not going to be going deeper of how to, or we logged into the system, but what I'm going to be showing or highlighting is that we are going to be in the process whereby we are going to be extracting the data from the database as well as the country finance data tool for the year we are looking into. And then we filter the data using the project start dates, the end dates, the commitments, and the disbursements, as well as the sectors. But it should be noted that there are any other sectors that we are going to be, or the areas that are going to be focusing on in filtering the data. So after the filtering of the data, we are not going to be solely looking or using as well as the data from the IATI, but we are going to be doing the checks using the reports that we are getting from the donors on monthly basis, as well as using the data from the local databases. You would remember that I said we have the CS, the RMS data. But in using the IATI data, we realized that there are some challenges that we encountered. But I'm not going to be going into all those sectors, the challenges, but I'm going to be mentioning the few. When you get into the data from the IATI, you would realize that when you look at the sectors, there were the sectors which were not specified or allocated. Also, the challenge that we face is that under the transactions type, whereby we had the commitments, disbursement, as well as the expenditures. The challenge with the commitments is that you would find that when they are being reported or recorded, some are recorded being the negative values and others are recorded being the positive values. The same thing applies for the disbursements as well as the expenditures. So then we in order to expedite the data, we have to go back and try to understand exactly what happened in terms of the disbursement, whether the recorded figure should be recorded as the negative figure, reflecting that such an amount was not used, but it was disbursed and then returned into the project. The other challenge relates to the currencies that were used. That one relates to the usage of the portal or the data store, where you would find that there is a mix of the dollars, the euros, and the Japanese yuans. So in trying to convert or putting those figures into dollars,
we were not so sure of which currencies or which the exchange rate were applied. And then that led to the low disbursement or the higher disbursement that was expected. Now I'm going to be looking at some key analysis that we did with the IATI data. As you can see from the graph, this shows the disbursement by all development partners, but you will realize that since 2018, there has been a lot of improvement, which was triggered by the quality of data that we got from the IATI. So you would know that since the 2017-18, the development assistance improved to 322.2 million from 141 that was recorded in 2016-17 and increased further to reach a high of 393.97 million in 2018-19. So we are also aware that there has been a significant progress that was made in improving IATI, the aid transparency, which has served to inform better coordination. And this information also proven the use for monitoring of the aid effectiveness principles. So now we are going to be looking at how then are we using this analysis for. So what we have noted is that this analysis helps the government of Lesotho as well as the aid community to analyze aid flows, determine priorities, identify overlaps, analyze results versus the expenditures of funds, and reach agreements on strategic direction with regard to allocation of international assistance going forward. Also, we used such an analysis to automate the public sector investment program, which we should be noting that such a portfolio is consisting of all the projects that have been appraised and approved by the Public Sector Investment Committee. And then those projects will be awaiting the funding. And also, we were able to overcome the absence of an aggregate overview of the aid to Lesotho, as well as the access of unique archival repositories of assistance to Lesotho over time. Also, Lesotho was able to establish a publicly accessible, transparent, and global picture of international assistance to Lesotho and the domestic financing on a perpetual basis. We were also able to use such an analysis in the development of our resource mobilization strategy. Now, so I think I'm now done, and let me thank you very much for your attention and apologize for the disorder that was caused by the internet connections. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I'm glad we were able to push through and get the whole presentation. I think we'll ask folks to put any questions in the chat, and hopefully we can get to them at the end. I want to make sure we get through all of the presentations. So I think we'll move directly to the next presentation, which is Lema from the government of Chad. I would just welcome you to go ahead and start sharing your screen. Fantastic.
Can you share my screen? Vous pouvez voir ma présentation? D'accord, ok. Bon, je vais parler en français, si vous me permettez. Voilà. Okay.
You could just want to,
Okay.
yeah, perfect.
D'accord, moi je suis docteur Logamou, Seknewna, Lema, je travaille au ministère des Finances et du Budget. Et on m'a désigné pour la présentation par rapport à l'utilisation des données de l'IATI pour l'Observatoire tchadien des finances publiques. Donc, c'est l'Observatoire tchadien des finances publiques qui est chargé de l'analyse de ces données et de la publication. Donc, mon plan est comme suit. Je vais parler de l'Observatoire tchadien des finances publiques et ses missions et pourquoi on a utilisé les données de l'IATI. Et puis, je parlerai aussi des difficultés rencontrées et ce que nous avons fait à notre niveau. Voilà. L'OTFIP ou l'Observatoire tchadien des finances publiques est créé par arrêté présidentiel pour accroître la transparence dans la gestion des finances publiques. Et cela concourt aussi à la bonne gouvernance. Donc, ce que fait l'OTFIP spécifiquement, c'est collecter les données et diffuser les données et les informations relatives à la finance publique et de mettre à la disposition du public le chiffrage sur l'impact budgétaire et financier des politiques publiques, proposer un calendrier de diffusion des informations sur les finances publiques au cours de chaque année, diffuser régulièrement un guide synthétique et clair, simple et relatif au budget, et fournir aussi avec objectivité et à des fins pédagogiques des informations régulières sur les grandes étapes de la procédure budgétaire.
So this includes information relating to the budgets and financial thresholds. The idea is to really make sure that we can undertake all the actions contributing to transparency and good governance in the management of public finances. So with regard to these missions, the success of our project is very much linked to collaborating with three types of partners: civil society organizations and the media, other state actors, so the Court of Auditors, National Assembly, National Archives, IATI Chad also, and also the enterprises involved in the extractive industries in our country, also technical and financial partners, so for technical assistance, training, and financing. So why do we use IATI data? Well, particularly this is to do with our legal provisions in our country. We need to follow Article 7 in particular, which stipulates that when granted to the state, financing from international donors has to be included in revenue and expenditure in its general budget. So we have to have concrete data in order to actually make this available to the public. And it's very important to do this under our Code of Transparency and Good Governance. So why, therefore, do we use the IATI data in this? We have initiated the drafting of an international financing report. The idea is to be able to therefore draw on a larger database on external financing. We collaborate, therefore, with the International Aid Transparency Initiative in actually producing and working on this data. Our first report was published in October 2020, and we also presented this to the National Assembly as an annex to the Finance Bill for the 2021 fiscal year. We encountered certain difficulties. Some of these were big difficulties and some of them were more minor things. So firstly, a lack of data on geographical locations. We wanted to really find out which specific areas were being taken into account. So we have specific regions where certain projects are located, and sometimes it was quite difficult to understand exactly where these localities were. There were also some issues around understanding the nature of financing, such as disbursement and expenditure. We had some issues linked to the repatriation of funds, and also certain difficulties around quite a large number of categories for beneficiary sectors, etc. We had to actually try to streamline these and actually reduce the sheer number of categories that were being used for the sake of simplicity. Estimating funding by locality and sector was also a challenge. So I also spoke about finding these geographical localities specifically. We also had to therefore use estimation there were some issues around actually comparing and verifying some of the information that we actually received from IATI data against other sources. One of the other difficulties I wanted to mention was a lack of data on funding received from certain donors who didn't report to the IATI, and also certain issues around funds passing through several donors. So they were likely to be declared several times because one donor might have actually gone through another intermediary. So what did we do to try to solve some of these problems? We requested technical support from the IATI team for some of these issues that we encountered. We carried out work relating to this grouping process by sector. So the idea was to reduce the numbers by merging similar sectors. So for example, reproductive health, public health. So this categorizing work. We also carried out research work on how to actually detect different geographical localities based on project descriptions. So we had codes to actually enable us to better define these areas. We also looked at some of the issues linked to finding the name of a specific area in Chad. So we worked further on this, and we needed to also see how we worked with averages. So when it was a question of there being an allocation of funding for projects over several different geographical areas, we had to try to get an equal allocation for each one. I think that's everything I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation today.
Thank you very much for sharing your presentation. And I think I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment. But again, please, anyone, if you have any questions, put them in the chat, and we will make sure to try and address them at the end. But I guess we'll move on to the next presentation. Let me welcome Rufin to share the next presentation from the government of Madagascar.
Bonjour à tous.
Bonjour.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rufin Adriaherizo. Can I just check that you can see my screen correctly?
Yes, looks great.
Great. So I'm Rufin Adriaherizo. I work within aid coordination for the Prime Minister's office in Madagascar. I'm going to speak in French today for my presentation. The slides are in English though, so I hope that will help. I'm just going to explain the outline today. I'll give you a bit of context with regard to the historical situation and then the use of IATI data in Madagascar. I'm going to also demonstrate the way that this data is used, and we're going to also look at some concluding perspectives with regard to our projects. So first of all, I'm going to talk about AMP. AMP is our national database. It centralizes information on public development assistance in Madagascar. It's been online since 2009 in Madagascar, and it's accessible to everybody on the internet. It contains all information on our official development assistance projects, and it can be consulted by all our development partners on a governmental level, the ministries. It doesn't only contain information on public investment, but also other investment information from different bodies. It's also managed and updated quarterly. So why did I want to talk to you about this? It's a good example, I think, in terms of how we've worked in partnership. I'm going to tell you a little bit therefore of the history behind this, the context. So we started working with IATI in 2011, and from 2011 to 2015 we used IATI data basically to check and discover what the different sources of financing data could be in the content. We worked with several partners who weren't necessarily feeding information directly into our own databases. So IATI really helped us to actually increase the information available. From 2015, we were chosen as a synchronization project partner with our national aid management system. And at the end of 2016, we also started to work on D-Portal. We discovered D-Portal really around this year, and we started to use this with our IATI data. In 2017, we continued the data synchronization project, so between IATI data and the AMP data. We carried out this project with UNICEF, who gave us financial support, and also some of our support partners. In 2021, we used a new tool, the Country Development Finance Data tool, to actually improve our analysis. It was really interesting for us because it really enabled us to go deeper into this, really refining and speeding up our searches and really detect information gaps between the IATI data and our AMP data. This is just a diagram to give you an idea of the sources of data being used for our AMP in Madagascar at the moment. You can see that we have, since the AMP system existed, had a data collection process from our partners. So the partners based in our country and outside. And you can see here how the IATI data comes in here as an information source. So it's about the transparency portal, the new tool that was developed. We've also used these tools to really add to the information and try to address any information gaps in AMP. We have importation tools as well. This is linked to our project with UNICEF and France. So we've been able to continue this work to really enable us to import data directly from IATI into our base. I'm going to show you how this is done. In fact, there's a module that has been integrated into our own database, and this import tool enables us to actually, well, we download it freely from the internet, and this enables us to actually create direct links. I've actually given you a link here to our YouTube video that actually shows you how this process works. I'm going to try to actually show you this now, if it works, if I can.
Can't quite see the video yet. Is it still, you still working to get it up? If in case you're having an issue sharing the video, I know my colleague Sandra is ready to share it as well. So just let us know if you're running into an issue there. Rufin, are you able to hear me?
Hello?
Are you able to hear me, Rufin?
Yes, hello, hi.
Okay, are you still trying to show the video? I don't think we can see it quite yet, but I think Sandra can also share it if you're running into an issue.
Attends, vous n'arrivez pas à voir la vidéo là?
Can you not see the video from my screen?
No, I think you need to stop sharing the PowerPoint perhaps, and then share maybe the window with the video.
Et là?
It is there. I wonder if there's audio there. I don't know that we can hear. Perhaps coming through in the French channel. Okay.
Je peux parler en même temps si vous voulez.
I can maybe speak at the same time if that works for you. So I'm just going to explain what the video shows. It shows the downloading of XML files, so UNICEF data on our website. You can see here that we're downloading this file in order to import it into our AMP database. And the video shows that I'm now going to access the AMP database to actually do this importation work. So I go into the database with my login information and I go into a workspace called IATI Madagascar. So it's a workspace dedicated to importing IATI data. So the idea is to be able to do analysis via this and decide if we're going to be able to actually integrate the data. So here's an example here of some data that has been imported from IATI into AMP. So you can see here this list of projects that has been imported into our AMP Madagascar database. I'm now going to show you the importing process. So we go here into the tool, IATI Importer, via the Tools tab. And here I'm looking for the adequate version, the correct corresponding version. So we see the XML file here that we've just downloaded, 2.02. And so I can select this version in the import tool. I import the file. And I upload it. And there we have the possibility to actually select filters. So you can see I'm going here to filter just the projects that are ongoing. So filter by sector, filter by supplier or organization. And I can even filter based on the names used here. These filters will enable me to refine the data that I want to import. And the next step is to choose the project. So I can actually import all the projects, or I can select a certain number of these projects. So you can see here that I'm going to select the new projects. I'm going to update the projects that are already existing there in the base, so ones that have been imported previously from IATI to the AMP database. So now I click on next, and the next step is now the fact that we've got the possibility to match correspondences between the AMP fields and the IATI fields. So for example here, a description in IATI and in AMP, activity status. So we need to make sure that the names are the same, you see. Location fields, we're going to choose location in AMP. And I'm going to make sure that there is also a match here to make the import process clearer and smoother, because there are sometimes differences in definitions between AMP and IATI. During this matching process, we also have the possibility of registering or saving these correspondences so that we can use them again for the future. So here we are, I'm going to save this. Save the mapping so that the next time I want to do this, I can actually follow the same process when I'm importing UNICEF data. It's a template that I'm going to use to make sure that this matching process will be done automatically next time. So I click on next. I have the next step coming up here, and this is also to do with matching. We can match the field values that we've just selected. So here, for example, implementation, and we're going to say this is ongoing in AMP, and localization. So location here, I'm going to make sure that there's a match here for all the regions that we are talking about here. So I'm going to make sure that these match. These are the regions of Madagascar in question for these projects. Funding organization. Here I've put Canada, so I'm going to make sure that these values match up. I'm talking here about the implementing organization, so I'm making sure this is the same as well. And here again, I can save this template, this matching of values, and I can now move on to the import process itself. So according to these filters and this matching, I have three options here. I can overwrite all the information, I can only add the missing information, or I can replace the funding information in AMP with the IATI data. So this then moves forward to the import. And here we are. Here we are. There are some errors, but this just shows what's already showing on our database. It's not a really big issue. And here we can see the projects in question and the data that's been imported now. So here we are. I'm now going to just go back into my presentation. So what were the challenges for this project? So when it came to importing, one of the main challenges was really matching the fields and the values. This was sometimes quite complicated. There are differences in definitions for many fields and many values between IATI and AMP. So this was quite a complex process. For UNICEF, one of the main challenges was really to make sure that there was a donor location for each commitment line or finance line. It was quite difficult to make sure we had enough details on locations at country level. With regard to the tool itself, there were also certain challenges around the fact that we changed quite a lot in the tool. We're still working on this actually at the moment, and we've still got quite a lot of import work to do when it comes to all the fields available in IATI. I think we haven't been able to do import for everything yet. The results now, what were the results of this process? Positive and negative in terms of this UNICEF experience. I think we've got a lot more detailed data now in our base. I think we've got identical data now between UNICEF in our base and from IATI. So we've been able to really have this correspondence. We've been able to make sure we also are aware of some of the things that are still to be done. As I explained before, there are a few issues when it comes to actually aligning information, some things that haven't been able to be imported yet. Also some issues, some work remaining to be done. But I think it's important now to think about a few perspectives for the future. We are very much in the process of doing this work. We're hoping to really scale up this initiative now. We have already started this process with other partners, and we've been working therefore with the African Development Bank, UNDP, USAID. And so this is just to give you an idea of some of the things that we've done already and some of the plans for the future. We're going to continue to improve the data. As I've said, there are some things that haven't been imported yet, some difficulties with regard to actually getting all the IATI data into our IMP. I think I've come to the end now. I'd like to thank you for listening to my presentation today, and I'm very happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I think it's very helpful. I'll give a quick sort of overview at the end here. I think that we've kind of run over time, but I think all of those are really great presentations. And I think they provided sort of a picture into how governments are directly accessing IATI data and using it through some of our tools, and also how governments are also still working to import IATI data into aid information management systems like the aid management platform. Both of these are ways in which governments are accessing IATI data, and obviously working to use the information for these very important processes that are carried out at the country level. So I think there was a question in the chat about some of these key data quality issues. I think all of the presenters highlighted some of the challenges that they've encountered. So I think that some of these challenges, along with many of the others we've heard as we've been engaging with governments this year, I think can be certainly summarized and shared out to your question, Melinda. So I think definitely we can do that. But I just want to thank the presenters, and I think we probably have to conclude here. But certainly, if anybody has any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and I'm happy to share those out with the presenters and get back to you. So thank you very much to everyone for joining this session. And we will have a 10-minute break. Sorry for going over until the next session begins. And the next session in this room will be the IATI break. So IATI, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but then you can move to the other rooms for the sessions you can see there on the screen. Thank you again for everyone for joining the session, and to the presenters.
Thank you.